Well, just now 8 p.m. in Bangladesh time. We may start. Hello, everyone. It's Alamgir Hossain, MEL Coordinator, Act Associate, and Admin of Digital MEL Hub. It's my great pleasure that all the emerging M&A professionals from national and international level have joined today. Thanks everyone to keep with us. All of you are requested to unmute yourself all the time during session. And please turn off your video as well. I am so grateful that all of you are keeping believed with Digital MEL Hub. Digital MEL Hub is a virtual open learning platform for solely M&A professional with the vision of connecting all the M&A professional worldwide under one umbrella, so that we can share our knowledge, experience, documents, opinions, views, ideas, etc., etc. Here, feel free to ask any your query here, as more than 1,000 registered members from 87 countries are connected already here still today. You can also post job vacancy here as well. Please be sure that you are maintaining our strict rules that all should be relevant to M&A. So connect with us via 3 social media platforms: WhatsApp, Facebook, and LinkedIn to upload your skill and knowledge. We arrange monthly webinar on important M&A topics. I am so grateful that all speakers is here without any cost. Great thanks for their support. I don't want to lose the chance to thank Rafiq Bhai, Nazrul Bhai, Bilash Da, Zakare Bhai, Iqbal Ahmed Joni Bhai, Shahjahan Bhai, Ronak Da, Alamgir Bhai, Nasir Bhai, Hindul Bhai, as well my wife Irene Sultana, also for their continuous support. Today, we are going to organize our 7th webinar on theory of change. It's a great day for us because we have Mr. Bilash Mitro as a speaker. All of you know he is very experienced and reported person in the M&A field of Bangladesh. It's also a great momentous for us. Our 2 bright star M&A field, respected Mr. Nazrul Bhai and Mr. Rafiqul Islam Bhai, are present here with us as a guest speaker. All 3 personnel here today are so marvelous that we are M&A professional always wish to work with them at least once in our career path. They are the knowledge store of monitoring, evaluation, research, learning, adaptive management, and so on. You are requested to be member of Circle, a platform for M&A practitioner where you can learn a lot also. Now it's time to hear from our guest speaker, Nazrul Bhai, acting COP at BML. He is very much expert in monitoring, evaluation, learning, and reporting system focusing on D2A USA funded project. I am requesting Nazrul Bhai to share his valuable experience regarding theory of change. Nazrul Bhai, please start.
Good evening, everybody. This is Nazrul Islam. I'm very much glad to be here with you. I thank Mr. Alamgir Hussain for arranging such a great event and also coordinating this digital MEL hub, connecting all the MEL professionals from Bangladesh and around the world. This is a great effort. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think the topic is selected is a very, important topic. And on the other hand, from the M&A world, M&A professional, I feel everybody know this topic. Thing is that how much we know and how much we can apply, this is the issue. And that's why this topic, which is going to be presented by Bilash Mitra, I hope everybody will learn a lot from this. I'm going to highlight some of the important issues it will be added to his presentation. Basically, this ToC or theory of change is used for project design. And before, this terminology known to us, there are other methods as well. We practice a job. Job means objective-oriented project planning, which was developed by German. And in the middle of 80 to middle of 90, this methodology was used for project designing. After that, log frame logic model and many other models already come into the ground and people are using it. ToC. Hello.
Yes, carry on. Yes.
Okay. ToC is in fact what is doing. It is pulling out the problem in front and then identify the solution. That's the main job of the ToC. Means that it develops a cause and effect relationship. So, that's why ToC is, when it is explaining in a way that, is usually used as a development hypothesis. Actually, we use development hypothesis to explain the theory of change. So, what we see in the development hypothesis, actually it indicates, it shows the relationship, what is the problem and how it is going to be solved, this cause and effect relationship. And from this theory of change, the project goal, project objective, project result framework is developed. So, this is the process how a project is developed from the problem to the solution. Question is that, then what is the relationship with the ToC and MEL profession? Before I going to discuss that question, I would like to highlight some of the role of the MEL professional. In a project, what they are actually doing. We are in fact doing, preparing the report, progress report for the project management, for the donor, for the funding agencies. We are reporting target versus achievement. We are reporting the context and performance. So if you see that here is the connection between the ToC and MEL. In fact, ToC to MEL is reporting the result, and the result is derived from the theory of change. So, if we are a MEL professional, we must be a strategic professional as well, strategic development professional as well, so that we can see the project in our mind, how it is developed and how it is working and making the result. If we cannot visualize these things in our mind, in our head, then we actually could not be performed as per the expectation. We will not be a good M&E professional. So, understanding the ToC and the result framework is the primary need of the MEL professional. The other thing I would like to highlight here, that the selection of the indicator. When you are reporting the result, then you need to select the indicator, and that requires a lot of knowledge about the project. In my experience, I see that there are mean, many activities which really, I mean, select the indicator actually is not aligned what they are doing or partly aligned with that. So if you want to show your project, visualize your project to the other, you have to identify the proper indicator. And that actually is derived from the ToC to result framework to the indicator. And that will tell the total story. If you can select the proper indicator, that will tell the total story of the theory of change. So another thing is that the theory of change is a very, specific one. It thinks big, but focus on a specific one. That's why when you are, selective of your problem and solution, then you have to think about the context, because there are other factors in the project that is, affecting your progress. That's why context is also one thing which is derived also from that theory of change. And context monitoring, context reporting is also part of that. And theory of change is also, total, package, I will say, the learning, project learning. So all together, I will say that the theory of change is a hands-on tool for the MEL professional to design a monitoring, evaluation, and learning plan. And who can do that better way? Those who can learn the theory of change strategically, learn the theory of change professionally. Then you will see the project in your mind, and then you can, measure the result properly. With that, I think I can stop now, because the presentation that Bilal is going to deliver, this will be, I hope, comprehensive, and everybody will enjoy that one. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, Nazrul Bhai, for giving your valuable time to enrich our knowledge, and your guideline will give a light to our way. That's again for the thanks for joining. Now it's time to hear from our guest speaker, Rafiq Bhai, M&A lead at AR Malloy. He has vast knowledge on monitoring and evaluation, sampling technique, strategy, methodology for a long time. Now I am requesting Rafiq Bhai to share his valuable experience regarding ToC. Thanks, Rafiq Bhai. Rafiq Bhai.
Good morning, good
Yeah.
afternoon. Who is living which part of the world? But okay, thank you, Alamgir Bhai, for inviting me. I don't have any presentation, that's clear. I will take maybe 2-3 minutes, but I am waiting to even learn from Blas Mitro. I am sure he will make a good presentation. On the other hand, talking after Nazrul Bhai is our guru is really difficult. He covered a lot. But okay, as I have to tell something, let me focus some of the micro level learnings on the ToC. So before going to ToC, the M&E professionals here, I would like to focus on even the problem analysis. The ToCs, even before ToC came from the problems. So what's happened, any project design, you need to identify your main problem that the project would like to solve. And what are the sub-problem, what are the effect for the problem, what are the consequences, and what are the causes for those problems. And then the interesting is whenever you convert the problem to a solution, it will become your ToC. So your main problem can be your project goal, and then the sub types of problem can be your purpose, and then the specific sector related uh, the causal relationship that you can start, that sub purposes, intermediate outcomes, as well as output and whatever the activities you want to do. And 2 or 3, okay, this is the casual linkage, but already Nozul Bhai told there are other few factors that we need to consider in the ToC. That is, what are the external assumptions or external factors that is important to success for your project, but those factors are out of your control, out of control of the project, or is beyond the scope of the projects. You need to really identify very beginning of your project, and then you need to subsequently you need to monitor those on, as well as you need to do a lot of secondary review to understand whenever you make a causal linkage and relationship, you need to give a rationale why you are telling that if we do this, that will happen. Is there any evidence? If there is a knowledge that you already know from your previous project or any research, that you need to mention there. Also, we know this, the different development projects are not solving all the problems. Rather than sometimes it's partly. So other actors also supporting to reach your goal. So all those also you need to define there. This, and on the other hand, for the M&E professionals, I would say is really need to understand the relationship between the theory of sense to log frame, and then to your monitoring indicators. That's if you understand this relationship, then you are in a good position. Good position is a good M&E. You can collect the required indicators and give the regular feedback to your management for appreciating the good achievement, as well as to provide feedback and identify the gaps where the project may need to give more emphasis on to reach your goal and objectives. So that as a M&E team is really important to understand all these relationships. That's I don't know what I'll tell. So this, it is changeable. I would say you need what in my experience we see is every year I work for USAID funded projects. So every year we do the revision of the ToC. We go back, what we learned, what is working, and what is not contributing a lot. Then what are the changes we might need? And every year we are reviewing the ToC as well as making adjustment and the consequence to changing your log frame. And this we called IPTT in the USAID funded project, so that the targets, revision of the targets, etc. So this is something is a regular. You need a regular use of this. It is not that only during the design or beginning of the project you develop something and just put it in a shelf. No, it is something that you need to use regular. And what even my project, what I am trying here to ask whenever there is a training to our colleagues, we are also telling them this activity that we are planning, where in our ToC it will contribute, so that all the frontline colleagues can know also that their efforts where it is contributing. So in this way, I would say this ToC should use from frontline colleagues to a management level. All the level people need to understand and regular monitor And if we do that, then you will reach your goal very systematic way. I should stop here maybe, but I am really eagerly waiting to see the presentation from Glashmitro. And on the course of this session, if there is any question or clarification required, then both I am sure Nazrul Bhai and I are here to discuss and answer. Over to you, Alamgir Bhai.
Thanks, Rofik Bhai, for your valuable time and advice. Now on 40 around the world, from around the world, Honorable ME Professional. Now, the moment to start our today's session on theory of change with our resource speaker, Mr. Vilas Mitro. He is a monitoring, evaluation, research, learning, and adaptive management practitioner for market system development, private sector engagement, and livelihood development approach. Also have vast experience to work with renowned INGO and government departments such as Air Bangladesh, ACDI VOCA, IRI, World Fish, FAO of UN, Counterfactual International, NBR under Custom Division. Now he is working with DI as MERL lead. He has experience for multi-donors such as USAID, FCDO, European Union, World Bank, etc. Before leaving, I request again all of you, please remain unmute during session, and you will get open discussion feedback at the end of the session for 20 to 30 minutes. So keep question or suggestion at your mind. I am requesting to Vilas Da to start today's session. Over to you, Vilas Da.
Thanks, Alamgir Bhai. Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thanks Digital Media Hub for organizing types of learning sharing events. Actually, especially I would like to give the credit to the Alamgir for facilitating that event last 1 year. Maybe he is trying to facilitate that sorts of learning event. So it's a good platform where from different countries participated MEL experts. So there is a useful platform for sharing the knowledge to everyone. Before starting my presentation, I would mention that the things basically mentioned by the Rofik Bhai and Alamgir Bhai, Rofik Bhai and Nazrul Bhai. Mostly actually they covered whatever I prepared present in the presentation, so it will be mostly repeated discussion, so please bear with me for this discussion. And I will share basically my experience here. So how I practicing the theory of change in my project, in my program at intervention level or different stages. So I will just share how we are practicing. So I'm also expecting from all others at the end of the presentation to get the learning from them, actually, to get their what else are doing, how they are practicing these things. Thanks again, I show. Okay, I'm starting my part. Are you hearing everyone?
Yes.
Okay. And okay. Today's discussion, I on the ToC, the things there here, Rofik Bhai and Nazrul Bhai mentioned that ToC, how it connected with the log framework, result framework, as well as indicator measurement process, all those things. But I would like to confine as it is discussion about the ToC. So I'd like to confine the discussion with within the ToC. We'd like to focus and actually how ToC helps the project to learn, and as well as the how it's evolved in the over the period of the project, how adaptive management work in within the project or within the interventions. So that things I would like to basically discussed here. So in my presentation, The agenda I will cover. Could you please mute?
Monar bhai, please unmute.
In my presentation, basically, I will just first I will briefly describe about what is the ToC, how it's why we are using this ToC, and how to develop this ToC, and how can we set up the learning agenda for, during the development of the ToC, as well as the how can we capture the evidence-based learnings from this using the ToC, and then how it's work for rectifying the theory of change, as well as and then how it's work as adaptive management tools. So that these are the points basically we'd like to cover in this discussion. Then if I come the first slide, there is a word. Why is the ToC? ToC is there is two components. If you think all the it's basically a diagram. Under this there is a two broad component. First component basically covered the conceptualization operation of the frame of the theory. How would you develop this theory? Theory means whatever we mentioned, that there is some sorts of problems you would like to address. This problem issue root causes you want to address, and then how do you want to address? So that part you have to describe clearly, and for whom you want to work these things. Who are the target group for this problem? Who are facing this problem, and how you would like to address this problem? So that is called a strategy. And finally, what you want to achieve. So there is a lots of problem you may have. So in one project or in one intervention, maybe not possible to cover all the problems. There is some sub problem maybe over there which are not maybe covered, but whatever you want to achieve. So how you want to achieve and how would you like to bring these outcomes, you have to have clear causal path over there. So in the theory of change, so, and the person you are targeting, whether it's hitting those person or it's bringing result for others. So that things you also have to consider in the under this during the discussion of theory of change. So this is first component, conceptualize and operationalize the frame in targeting three frames over there. And second component, I would like to mention that the strategy you mentioned, and so you have to have some relationship and connection with all those. Say for understanding the relationship among the three core frame, experience those relationships clearly. So there is you have a different strategy to achieve this outcome. But how, which one first and which one then which one comes, and there may be one activities may bring outcome, multiple outcomes or multiple results can be, or multiple activities may bring one outputs or one results. So how it's all those is connected with each other. So you have to clearly explain over in the relationship sections as well. And in summary, if I mention that the activities for addressing any problem or any issues, the activities you are taking, whether it's producing series of results that contribute to achieving final intended impact of the targeted groups. So that's the summary basically, nothing else. It's just a schema of the diagram how one activity is contributing others. So that's the things basically describing the theory of change. These are your assumption. Based on your assumption, based on your situation analysis, based on your problem analysis, you are drawing these things. It may be not whenever you are starting the implementation, maybe it does not work. That's why we focus as whenever you're developing the theory of change, at the same time you have to have some learning set learning questions and against those each and every steps. So that through that question you can collect the evidence actually whether it's working or not. If it does not work, then you can immediately take decision actually whether along with program team you can take decision whether what sorts of changes is required, what sorts of adaptation is required. Then why actually I already mentioned discussed during my brief discussion as why we are developing the ToC. It's basically understand the kind of monitoring evaluation information, what sorts of through this ToC, then you can easily identify during the monitoring phase implementation what sorts of monitoring data you need to collect to make day-to-day decisions. The things I mentioned actually, whenever you are you have a one understanding that if you do these things, that things should be achieved. But whenever you are doing going to the field and visiting the work and saw that it does not come whatever you thought, maybe there is some external factor over there. So then you have to take decision actually how you can achieve this whatever you want to achieve. So then you have to take decision actually whether you have additional activities necessary or you have to stop this one or take a different way you have to design this activity. So that sorts of things bring to in your mind during the implementation, and ultimately that helps to reach your goal. So, and then another important point is helps to develop learning agenda and evaluation questions. Actually, that's the focus basically. Whenever you are doing, it is not one shot things. That learnings you will can incorporate not only for only this project design. If you want to develop another project or another intervention, same source of intervention, then you can use that sorts of learning in other project actually. So that's also have a current project as well as the other whenever a new project you want to come on board and designing phase, you can consider those learning as well. And facilitate understanding the link between a strategy and achievement. That means whatever strategy you initiated, whether it's bringing the outcome or achievement or not, that things you can get understanding, then you can collect the evidence actually, and then it's help you actually to attribute your work, the work activity, the initiative you have taken. Because of this initiative, you can say that these changes made. So that evidence, whenever you have this evidence, you can prove that that is that because of our activities, these changes happen. In summary, theory of change helps to understand assumption and expectation that guide their decision, actions, and results and accomplishments. And then if I show you just schema diagram, is this basically there is a in the bottom line there is a strategy and activities whatever you are thinking to achieve the impact level things. And then from the strategy, what are the immediate outputs it's generating and what outcomes is generating from those output, what are the outcomes will be achieved, and then what impacted things from this initiative, from those initiatives. So each and every steps there will have some assumption and risk factor, which are maybe not your control. So you have to have understanding about those assumptions, those some of the positive factor over there, maybe external factors. So that maybe if it is not happen, if it is not work, then maybe the output you are thinking, the outcome you are thinking to achieve, maybe it does not bring it. You cannot get this outcome. So that sorts of assumption in each and every steps, you have to have some assumption for each and every steps. So that's the things in the right side, and then left side is basically showing the how do you measure all those output, outcome, and impact level things. So you can decide what are the indicator you will be set for assessing those achievement. These are the just sample diagram I just shows here. And then now if I come to the point about how will you develop the ToC. So I bring here 5 steps basically. I would like to clarify what I will go each and every steps for in details in the later part of this presentation. First step is basically focusing on the defining intervention or project or objectives. What are the things you want to do? What are the why you would like to do these things, and what are the outcomes you want to generate from this interventions? So that things you have to clear and stated these things clearly. Otherwise, if it is the haziness over there, then it would be difficult to generate the ToC. And then second step is down after clear specify every outcomes and objectives and interventions, then you have to set up the causal chain. Which activities contributing to which output, and which output contributing to the which outcomes, and which outcomes is contributing to the which impact. So lay out main steps in causal chain, and at the same time you have to identify the underlying assumptions. What are the assumptions for each and every steps? And then steps 3, there is a maybe you have taken this intervention not certain period of time, so you have to have some dimension, temporal dimension, with how many with which period you would like to achieve these things. You have to have some timeline set up over there. Otherwise it will not be maybe you are expecting these things within 1 year, and the activities, the strategy you made, maybe it will not match with your time period. So sometimes it may you will not get the result within your timeline, the way you set up your ToC. So that things also need to be considered. Actually, how many times you have whenever you are setting anything outcome you want to achieve, whether it's possible or not within your time frame. So that one also another important part. And then after developing that causal chain, you can set some evaluation questions in each and every steps, and set up the learning agenda. What are the things you want to so for one steps you given the I will show here one example about the school feeding. So there is a problem is students are not to be more attentive and less attendance over there. So they are not getting the better learning outcomes from this because of their problem with the malnutrition. So what project decided to serve the nutritious food during the school period. So they provided the food for them, feed for them, service, food service, and then saw that after starting these activities, their attendance is going to be increased, and then students are going to be attentive now, and then expecting that they will have a better learning opportunity over there. But the food you are providing, whether it's contributing in the their nutrition, what is mentioned, the problem they mentioned there in the under malnutrition. So whether it's contributing in their in the attentiveness. So that part you have to have some evaluation questions you can set for this, and then from that you can get to capture the changes. You have to have the collect the evidence whether increasing in the attendance or not, students are going to be attentive or not in their classroom. So that things you have to monitor. So that are the that these sorts of evaluation question you can set for each and every steps of the ToC. And then periodically you can review these outcomes and considering the theory of change, the causal chain you have developed, you have to review periodically whether it's bringing the activity, the strategy you made, whether it's bringing outcome or not. And then if it is successful, then it's okay, we can move forward. If it is not, if any are in a unintended outcomes generated or unintended negative outcome generated, then you have to may revise the it may require to change the strategy. So and as well as the causal change. So that things you have to change immediately on the time during the implementation of the intervention or project. So that are the we are step 5 basically focusing the adaptive management part. How far you are adapting, whether you are whatever you set up in the beginning, you are focusing at them you are not flexible to make change this ToC until end of the intervention, or whether you through the review process you periodically you are reviewing and changing the ToC or not. So that's things is basically highlighting in the step 5. These are the steps in the during the ToC we can consider during whenever develop the ToC. So defining intervention, I just put some of the questions here. Is basically the to know about the interventions. What is the problem that you want to address? So how can you generate this problem? How can you understand this problem? So you have to have some, you have to do some problem analysis for this. Otherwise, you will not get the underlying causes of this issue. So for ToC development, you need this problem analysis. And then what depth or level do you want to work? And then there is a different problem whenever you do the problem analysis, you saw that multi-dimensional problem. So whether you will you want to cover all those problem, or how much, what are the boundary you would like to keep your initiatives? So that things you also need to be considered. And what impact do you want to achieve? So if you work with this underlying this problem, and then what you want to achieve, and what impact, what changes you want to make actually. That one, and another question, and what would be the possible solution to the issue problem look like? So you at the same time you have to have identify what are the possible way to address those problems. How can you identify those things? For identifying those things, you have to have some stakeholder discussion. Even the people are with this problem, you have to discuss with them. And the surrounding community people are what they are, you have to discuss with them, how can you address those things? So you have to get idea from them about the solutions. These are the things before developing the any ToC. You have to have clear idea about the intervention objectives as well as the outcomes. So those ideas, whenever you want to generate, you have to do these sorts of exercise, causal analysis, problem analysis exercise, stakeholder analysis, and those things you have, these 2 things you have to, and also pathway of changes. These 3 things you have to identify before developing the ToC. Say, for example, the things I mentioned, problem is lack of attention in the classroom leads lower learning outcomes. These are this is one problem I just mentioned. There is some other problem as well. Solution, understanding that correct portion of nutritious meal supply may increase attendance and boost up attentiveness. That leads better learning outcomes. So these are the understanding assumption that if you do supply the nutritious food, then there will be increased attendance as well as the boost of the attentiveness. There may be other factor also over there, but it's one factor I just mentioned here. So then you have to take decision which meals you would like to supply. Is it breakfast meal or you would like to supply the lunch time? What time you would prefer? Which meal? What types of meal you would like to prepare? And how this food will be procured and prepared? What are the nutritious value over there? So before supplying this nutritious meal, you have to take decision those things. So for taking this decision, you have to understand that why they are, what sorts of nutritious food they need. That requirement analysis, situation analysis also required. So that things you have to, what is planned to ensure parent to know about it. Whenever you supplying this thing, this system you started in those school, so their parents should know. Otherwise, if it is happen, say for you are supplying any foods, parents don't know, but after taking this meal, a student are going to be sick. Then parents may attack the school. So before giving the risk free or award the parents, you have to be aware parents earlier about this, so to avoid such type of risks. And what training will be provided to preparing this food? Who will prepare this food? And how they will prepare what are the hygienic conditions they will maintain? So that sorts of who will prepare, they have to consider these things as well. These are just a simple example I would like to mention actually before defining intervention. Whenever you took decision that you see what sorts of things you have to consider. And then example, if I simply I just mentioned here, nutritious meal prepared and served in the correct portion. Children eat the meal and children more attentive. And at the same time, attendance rate also increased. These are contributing the better learning outcome. The assumption is understand that whenever you are preparing the nutritious food, understanding that food available in sufficient and quantity and quality of right time at right time. Right time, the amount and quality will be maintained and sufficient over their food available. Other inputs means children, if you consider the better learning outcome, so there will have some teachers will be the present, other inputs are present over there, whatever external inputs is required for creating the better learning outcome. These are the two assumptions over set here. These are the just example I would like to share. And then steps 2 is how do you steps 2 is basically the causal chain and assumption. How do you prepare? The main step of causal chain is I already shared one diagram. Is there is a implementation strategy. Under implementation strategy, before that you have to have some inputs and then a strategy and initiatives and then outputs and intermediate outcome, final outcome, and impact. There is different steps you can make. These are the steps you can follow. Maybe there some are also immediate output, intermediate output, different stages they prepare. So these are not fixed stages. You can break down whatever you like. And target group for whom you are want to work, what would be impacted, and process strategy identification. How could you reach, influence, impact, identify group and structures? How could you reach and influence and impact it, the targeted group? So you have to have some pathway how you would like to achieve this outcome, and what process would you need to be influence the identified group structure, and what vehicle could you use? So that means how you would like to in your journey. Sorry. So all those things you have to have clear understanding about this. And then for doing these things, what sorts of resource and input support you need? Sorry. So that's resource means there is a financial, time, skill, knowledge, HR, human resource, all are inputs. So what sorts of support and resource you need to achieve this outcome, to perform these activities. And based on that, you can draw the causal analysis, causal chain. And then these are the basically mentioned as whenever you would like to know about the resource and what are the external factor over there, you have to have some situation analysis or feasibility analysis. Which resource do you already have? Some of the resource maybe there exist. The resource you earlier you have a requirement of what inputs and resource, but now you have to have some analysis actually what are the existing resource, how can cost effectively do perform this activity in itself, and what skill, knowledge, other resources do you need to develop, what else is working in the field, are there opportunity to cooperation or partnership, is there any required to perform these things, do you have any partner, do you require any partnership with the public sector or private sector or even local NGOs as well, social enterprise or social communities people. So you have to identify these things because whenever you develop any pathway for the work you want to do and the change you want to make for the target group, what are the external factor over there, and then how can you engage them in your activity. So you have to have that sorts of analysis for this. And then how can you capitalize all those resources of people who have or are involved in the issues or problem to address this problem. So sometimes we ignore the local voice or local stakeholder consultation. So that things what happen whenever you are performing these activities, so you saw that you were doing some things from people, but ultimately it does not work at the end of the day, because there is some external factor who is hindered to achieve those outcomes. So that sorts of analysis, stakeholder analysis and situation analysis is very much important to set up the ToC. And then outcome, what would count or progress success after 1 year. So there is a year timeline period. After 1 year, what you want to see. Maybe I mentioned here a year, maybe some of them, in case of intervention, they want to see seasonal, there is some of the activities have seasonal issue. So by one season, what you want to achieve, and by next season, what you want to achieve. So you can set this time period as well. How do you know when you have succeeded? Then what indicator will you use to measure your achievement and impact? What are the indicators you will use to measure those outcomes? And then example, if I elaborate of the earlier chain, whatever simplified example I mentioned, and then now here in elaborate actually incorporating some of the input level and resource things as well as activity level things. Say for here is a money, one of the input, and then you engage the staff as well. And then after engaging a staff, identify the project or school, or which school you want to work. You may be considering your resource, you have to determine actually how many schools you will be work under your activities. So it is not possible maybe vast amount because of the fund and as well as staff resource. So maybe you select a 10 school from your localities and set up for those schools, set up the procurement and production and distribution system. And how will you prepare your food? For preparation of food, you need some of the kitchen setup, kitchen procurement things, as well as the materials and production and distribution. So how do you distribute the maybe For each school, you will not prepare the food. You will prepare in one places and distribute the food in different schools. So how do you distribute these things, and how do you maintain the hygienic things, and how do you maintain the during transportation, how do you confirm that the quality will be ensured, and then identify the school staff for training. Maybe there is some of the staff recruitment is necessary for the training to maintain the hygienic practice as well as the nutritious practice, and develop training guideline material. And then for train them, you have to prepare some of the training material as well. So these are the things you have to consideration for as activity. And then after that, you as output you make this get the kitchen equipped and food stuff produced and trained school staff in place. These three output you are expecting after doing those activities. And then nutritious meal will be prepared and served in correct portion in the selected school, and children eat the meal. These are the another outcome, and then children more attentive and higher attendance, and then better learning outcome. These are the elaborate. This one another elaborate theory of change, where I try to show what are the input you can consider and what are the activities we can consider for school feeding, what output we are expecting to generate after based on these activities, and then what outcomes we are expecting, and then how this learning better learning outcome will be generated. And then there is some assumption made whenever we are mentioning the money and stuffs, fund available on time, it's necessary. Without this, you cannot move forward. So if fund on time, if you not get, then maybe the activity will be hampered. So that assumption is basically for ensuring the resource. Equipment is distributed and usable. The equipment you are procured, you have to ensure that is usable equipment. And then food available in sufficient quantity and quality at right time. The food you are produced and served to the school is for the number of students, considering the number of students, the quantity is sufficient and maintain the quality as well. And right time, if you consider the breakfast meal, then you have to serve the meal on that time. If you consider the lunchtime meal, then you have to serve on time. So right time, you whatever you servicing, support food available, making available or not. And then food used for school meal. And then another assumption, parents are aware of school feeding and value it. Parents are aware about this, and they consider it as a valuable for the student, for their kids. And step 3 is basically the dimension, the timing about the timing, the activities, the output, the outcome we are considering, whether each timeline is accurately or realistically how far it's correct. You have to consider then that you expected lots of outcome, lots of activities, but your timeline is short. So maybe it will not be realistic for achieving those outcomes. So maybe you have to reduce the outcomes and deduct some of the outcomes which are not able to achieve within this time frame. So that things you have to consider, what are the time frame you have. Think through time required to observe sufficient changes in outcomes, sufficiently large group to measure impact. These are step 3, and then step 4, it was basically focuses on the learning question or evaluation question setup. In the causal sense, for each and every step, whatever I mentioned, that what need to be in place for this work. Assumption how work. The assumption we made in the theory of during the developing the ToC, whether it's working or not. The first one I mentioned, that's fund available on time. If fund available or not, if it is not happen and the fund available on time, then maybe the chain will not work properly. So the causal chain may be break down on the time. So you have to always questions for the assumption we made in each and every steps, whether all those things in place or not. If it does not in place on time, then it will not work. So why it does not in place, you have to dig out on that time. And then these are the evidence, you have to collect those evidence actually to why these changes is not made during as per understanding causal chain, why it does not able to achieve. That things maybe help you to clarify actually about the underachievement or more achievement. And then set learning as and then evaluation question, which tackle design issue, how correct set each steps and causal linkage. That means there is in the earlier chain, if I mentioned that whenever you are supplying the food, you properly supply the food and student are eat, and after that we expected that they will be more attentive. So whether it working or not, you can set some learning questions over there or evaluation questions over there, and accordingly you make plan when you will assess these things and what are the indicator you will be considered to assess this attentiveness of the student. And so that things you can make plan based on that. This will be each and every steps. For each and every steps you can set up the plan actually, how do you capture whose data and how do you capture and those data set as well, and how do you share these findings to the management as well, and plan for capture different types of evidence, the factual and counterfactual. This is basically mentioned that some of the whenever you are doing any activities and output, up to output you can see the activities you may make performed. Based on that these are generated, this immediate you can see this output, but whenever you want to see the outcome may not come based on your activities or outputs. The outputs may not lead to bring the generate the outcomes. So sometimes may lead to bring the outcomes. So that counterfactual also you have to capture evidence, counterfactual evidence we capture for that. Then here basically trying to what need to be in place, need to be in appropriate quality. The stuffs you selected, whether they are motivated or qualified. Not if maybe this all those things expecting. And then parents, about the parents of school feeding and value, if they did not value these things, then it may have some lackings of achieving the outcomes, higher attendance even. That's things maybe it's difficult to get attendance rate to increase, may not increase for this. And I share here basically mention some of the example of the learning questions or evaluation questions. One question I would like to just share, example just sharing. Food stuff produced and procured and received. Is central procurement or local production most efficacious or cost effective? The food stuff they are producing, the things are producing, how far it's cost effectively they are producing, and how perfectly are for maintaining the nutritious value, how they are preparing the food, whether it's maintained the nutritious value or not. That sorts of questions you can in each and every steps, each and every boxes, you can keep some of the questions. And try to, if say for activity and output level, you can during the monitoring period, implementation period, you can get the answer of those. And maybe for outcome level changes, if you want to see, maybe you have to wait some period of time. Maybe it depends on the interventions. So there is another questions in the outcome level. I mentioned that does breakfast or midday meal have higher impact? Which one is basically impacting more, breakfast one or midday meal? Say if you support the midday meal, after getting the midday meal, we saw that sometimes maybe you saw that a student are less attentive in the classroom because after getting midday meal they are going to be sleepy. Maybe they are not getting more attentive on that time. So that's ultimately hitting the lower learning outcome, not better learning outcome. So that sorts of questions you can generate in through your, as per your chain. And then regarding the factual evidence and counterfactual evidence, I mentioned that already discussed that factual evidence you can generate up to output level. You will get immediately actually what fact happened, what activities you are performing, whether this output is generated or not. You can get immediately. And counterfactual may require sometimes to get the changes, to see those changes. So that things you have to consider, and that sorts of evidence, if you so factual evidence, if you collect regularly and keep in the justification of the your attribution, that may be help to give you the insight actually the activity you are performing, which one giving more outputs, which one giving less outputs, and last ultimately in the counterfactual level whether it's bringing any contribution or not. And so the things is that then the last step is basically you have to have some validation process for the ToC. The ToC you developed, prepared in the beginning of the interventions or project. You have to have some systems for validation in the periodically. Periodically means you say for some are see the up to output level quarterly basis you can review, or monthly basis you can review with the program management team, and what changes happen, what output is generating, which activities is performing better, which activities is not performing better, and why it not performing better. And is there in the ToC whether there is any weak linkage or not. Weak linkage means some of the studies you made, but it does not giving any outputs or any outcomes, giving the output or the outcomes is generating is not cost effective outcomes. So that things we have to identify and review periodic basis, and revisit and revise theory of change as needed. Whenever it's required, you have to have change this box or changes this chain, causal chain. So these things is not only the MEL person responsibility. That's why I put the note. It's you have to do these things with the program staff. It's basically responsible for program staffs to do this thing. You will facilitate the process, but they are the decision maker basically to do all those changes, to develop all those things. So you can, as a MEL professional, we can facilitate the process, hold the process, how it's work, how it's make happen. These are the this is the mostly end of my discussion about the ToC. Just I put some documents which you need for developing the ToC. The things already mentioned: problem statement, desire, long-term goal, conceptual. What are the things in the ToC you have to mention? And domain of changes, a strategic objective, purpose level outcome, pathway of changes, which include breaking through, incremental outcome, assumption and risks, activity output to achieve outcome, indicator for every level. These are the box you have to consider during the developing the theory of change. And then it's just showing the example, one diagrammatic example. Whenever you develop the ToC, From that ToC you can convert into the results framework or log frame. You can convert these boxes. Actually, in the ToC, you have some of the assumptions as additional to the result framework and log frame. There is some causal link and assumption risks, as well as the some of the process box also mentioned in the theory of change, which are not you mentioned in the log frame, in general log frame matrix, as well as the result framework matrix. These are the different. And thanks everyone for hearing me. And any comments or suggestion, actually, I just share here my experience one. So maybe you are all are you are a practitioner. So someone differently use, someone differently work maybe better. So you can share your experience as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Breda. Thanks for your nice presentation. That was fantastic, amazing, from live experience session. I mean, useful fit session. That was the live or practical session. So now, open discussion session. There will have lots of question or feedback on the session, but we will finish by 20 to 30 minutes, couple of times. Please raise your hand one by one. Those who will not get chance, please write down your opinion, feedback, suggestion, question in our WhatsApp group or mail to me one-to-one. I will take care of your suggestion by WhatsApp group or by communication channel. Please. You can discuss.
Before jumping on discussion, Alamgir bhai, stopping the screen. Should I stop?
Yeah. You can stop your screen.
Okay. Yeah.
So
also some resource link I already mentioned here. So whenever you share the presentation, you can put the videos.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Don't worry. I will send all of you presentation or recording. And some people raise hands here. I take care one by one. And there are some chat box question. First question was, what point do you develop the evaluation? If you answer, what point do you develop the evaluation? Bilenda, are you hearing me? Or anyone answer me? Bilenda.
Sorry, I am also unmute.
Oh yeah.
Evaluation is depends on actually what you want to see. Whatever you want to, some level things you want to see, or you want immediate output you want to see. So depends on when you are performing which activities and what output you are expecting to generate. That's why I mentioned actually there is a time frame is necessary when what activities you are performing, what maybe not early stage, some are from maybe the later stage. So it's depend on your program strategy and program decision actually when you would like to see. And generally whatever we did in annual basis in intervention, if it is a 1 year's intervention, 1 year's activity, then we did the evaluation. It's mid performance. We assess the mid-year performance after 6 months and then the end of the interventions. If it is longer period of activities or project you consider, then there will have some yearly evaluation process. So that depends on your actually what are the theories, what theory of change, which level theory of change you are considering, and what are the outcome you want to assess. Am I clear?
Okay, well, there are another 3 questions in chat box, but firstly, I would like to say something. Sakwat bhai, raise your hand. Sakwat bhai, maybe you raise your hand. Have any suggestion, question, or feedback? Sakwat bhai.
Hello,
Yes.
good evening. I'm Shakawat from Afghanistan. I'm working with the PY as a head of MEL. So thank you, Mr. Vilas. It was a really very nice presentation and also like a very informative for the MEL professional. So it's not a question, just I wanted to know, there are a lot of people from big experience in this forum. Just my curiosity, as we are working in a fragile country, and our project duration is very short time, especially like 6 months to 1 year or 2 year. But my question to know how we develop ToC in this fragile context, and definitely like especially for USAID funded project, it's required that in our proposal. The process you mentioned in your presentation, so in the emergency context is very difficult to follow all the process, especially the causal analysis, especially for the project proposal development. We do the MSNA multi-sector need assessment. Based on that findings, we basically develop the project. So any recommendation or any suggestion to develop the theory of change? Thank you.
Thanks, Sakot bhai. Actually, others can contribute my Sakot bhai questions. I can share my idea actually. Whatever during the COVID situation, we in Bangladesh also we also face same thing with the restricted movement. So it's difficult to move in the field. So what for designing the intervention, what we did, we try to do the causal analysis, whatever I mentioned, is a stakeholder analysis. We try to follow the virtual, we use the virtual platform to do these things. So engaging all the relevant stakeholder. Maybe there is another challenge. So if you consider the root level, people, maybe they don't have access to the internet or other facilities. So it's difficult sometimes. But I shared my experience basically for private sector engagement part, as they are business holders, so they have this opportunity to engage in the where they have the internet facilities. So that's why we are able to perform this part through the virtually. We develop, did this all those analysis and develop the interventions as well based on the discussion. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Alamgir bhai, would I please mention some point for Sakot bhai?
Yes, sure.
So my name is Apurbo, also working in monitoring, evaluation, learning sector in Bangladesh. So your question is very interesting to me because I never worked for such environment. But as per my experience, I can add it with Vilas's point. So you have done a very excellent task because you already complete the multi-sector assessment. So that is the power of your designing of theory of change. And I can point and quote from Vilas's presentation. You can recall it is a framework for project assessment. So whatever you duration of your project, you have a specific performance indicator, you have a specific project life of project period. So easily you can organize your theory of change for that period. Say for example, you are selecting on performance indicator which will be matured within 1 year. So think that way your theory of change will continue from baseline to end line within 1 year, and you must have to select your performance indicator that will possibly important to achieve within this year. Say if you transplant rice, that will you can expect it will harvest within 3 or 4 months, but you then your theory of change will expand within this time period. But if you plant a mango tree and you organize your theory of change to
harvest your mango within 1 year, maybe that is not possible. So cut your coat according to your cloth. What is your project duration? Think that way. Organize your theory of sense that way. Then the challenge you may face, your field learning, field context, that may not be fully reflected to your theory of sense. So in that case, I can suggest that as you are working with that context with for a long period, so I am sure you and your team have experience on the field context, the fragile and the risk and other issues like environmental shock or the disaster management period, the theory of sense, how we develop. So like that, you can follow that process and you can apply your previous experience, your skill, your learning, etc. while developing the theory of sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Apurvada. We will come a remaining hand raising to those who are hand raising, but I want to give opportunity first from chat box. That question from Jonah Hussain, the main difference between ToC and log frame. The main difference between ToC and log frame. Dada, if you respond. Hello?
And log frame, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Actually, the log frame, whatever you are for metrics you are following. So where you are in the outcome level, you have a different outcomes, and output level there is a different outputs. But ToC is basically just nothing. It's just converting these things. Which output is contributing with which outcomes. There is some linkage, actually causal linkage. Which one you from the ToC you can easily convert the log frame, the result box, and in the ToC also there is some additional info box maybe you can generate, say for one of the services, say for any service you are trying to get access for the specific target group. So in the result log frame you are mentioning that this percentage of people are getting this, it is the access of the service. And then for that you are making available the service for the people, service providers, making available the service providers. But in the ToC there is some mention some of the additional box about the process. Maybe service provider you make available, but service provider in a specific location and offering this service or not. These sorts of box you are also additional box you can add that basically help you the logically understand how ensuring the access to the service for this specific people. So that's ToC is basically give you the picture of how it works, and log frame you just considering only the results part or immediate output part. So that one not giving you the picture of the chain, actually how which one is contributing, which one is not contributing. So but if one is supplementing another, so that's I would not, rather than understanding the difference you can consider this. If you have a ToC then you can easily transfer the log frame easily, which will give you the better understanding about the log frame. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Others can contribute if I miss anything.
Anyone contribute?
Hello.
Yeah. Hello, next, actually, our time remaining 8 minutes at our schedule. So I give opportunity to read down by Rizanul Haq. Please say something as you raise your hand.
Thank you, Alamgir, for giving me this opportunity. So thank you very much, Bilasda, for nice presentation, and definitely it will especially help me to understand and to develop the tier. My question actually, I need some suggestions. So I'm Mohammad Rizanul Haq. I'm working as manager MEL and research for practical action in Bangladesh. So my question or my point is that because for example, we're doing some short duration project like the 6 months or 8 months and even maximum 1 year. And in some projects like we're implementing a project funding by UNDP, but our actually role to act up to maximum the output level. Actually, we are not responsible for meeting the requirements of outcome level. So actually, at this stage, do we need to develop the ToC for this type of projects, or we just ignore this? But we have set a result framework and also the logical framework. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, Henry Roy. Actually, our time is short. Henry Roy, please say something.
Thank
your
you.
hand.
Yeah, thank you. This is Henry. I am working in drawing a response. My question is here that we have seen a lot of stages, but before going to theory of changes, the steps, we need to do the problem tree analysis and then convert the problem tree into objective tree. So then the steps that is described here, then we can follow. My issue is that the example that is given here about the school feeding, but the problem that is identified here, how many question or how many why we will ask for identifying the problem? Am I clear?
Anyway, thank you.
Would you response?
Should I response?
Would you any response, Dada?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
I'm just asking that in identifying the problem, so we need to ask why.
Okay, anyway, there is nothing thumbs rule how many why you will raise questions. So yes, per you until you will get the actual root cause, you will have to have this question. So so it depends on what problem you are dealing with and what you want to address. So it depends for understanding for your root cause, for addressing the actual problems. You until getting the actual problem, you have to make questions why. Otherwise, if you one or two why, if you do and then get the problem, you are thinking the surface level problem. If you consider, then maybe that work not bring the results sometimes. So that is my just from my experience I just mentioned. And another regional way also the things he mentioned that the project period is short, but ToC whether required or not. ToC is basically for any sorts of intervention, any sorts of project or anything, you have to develop the ToC. And then maybe you, because of your short period of projects, you will get the output level things. So that things you will monitor and then capture the evidence actually whether this output is generated or not. And as per your ToC, maybe whenever this output generated, that ultimately that outcome will become your assumption. So that assumption may be because of the limitation of the project period, you may not see the things whether it's coming or not. But ToC is help to understand actually how this result will be generated. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you. Yes. Will you say something?
This is Kebro from Ethiopia. It was a good presentation. I have one question. When we are developing a theory of change, we can come up with some activities which is already started or will start in the same area we are working, by another organizations. I know that activity is very important also for our outcomes identified through the theory of change. How can we include these activities run by other agencies into our monitoring plan? Thank you.
Yeah, Kibru, thank you for your interesting question. Actually, it's the issue of the attribution of your activities. So basically, the things you can consider. That's why in my presentation, actually, there is a point. Actually, whenever you are designing any ToC activities and the stakeholder analysis, on the time you have to consider what else are working and what sorts of work they are doing. So how it's contributing your the things. Maybe you have a one objective outcomes you are respecting. The activity you are mentioning, some of the others actors already started these activities. So how do you split or how do you contribute your attribution in this achievement? So that things it's basically you have to regularly monitor what are the target group you are focusing, and you have to have some traceability process during the monitoring. So that way you can trace out actually your attribution and evaluate considering those target group and whether these changes happen for those the activity you especially you did, whether it's contributing their changes or not. That's my understanding. Maybe there is others if you any
Okay,
others have any. Yeah.
Does that mean that?
So when you are done, you look at the drone one, the drone one and the Vogone one as you are working on. Then I will be working on Sunday in the afternoon. Let's see if we can meet here.
Yes.
The rest
Yes.
of the editing. Okay.
Yes.
So we'll catch up. Yes.
Didn't get
Alongir, over to you.
Already our time is up. 9:32 minutes as our schedule. Their time was 9:30, so we may stop.
Sure.
Everybody, thank you for joining again. Next webinar will be held at 10 September on M&E plan and M&E framework. So I request to all of you will join. Hopefully, you will join our webinar, next webinar, 10 September 2022. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Organizer,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Good night. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Vilasda.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Good night.
Thank you for the nice
Hope you will
presentation.
get the
Thank you.
videos.
Yeah, of course. I will send all of you video and channel.
Thank you.
Presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks.